In case you're wondering why you fill your cup so full, it says in Psalm 23, my cup overflows. So we want it to overflow with brachas. So off we go. If you are watching at home, you do need to have your own wine or grape juice, and ideally your own candle and spices as well, so you can make the brachas.
Isn't it supposed to go on the plate?
No, not specifically. It is supposed to light there. No, no. Please do not do that. Do not do that. Okay. Now, most weeks we've been doing musical Havdallah, and the point was made that people might think that Havdallah has to take like half an hour. So today we're going to do a slightly more traditional one, which is ever so slightly quicker. And then we're going to just share a quick story afterwards. Off we go. Right. Okay, so can you please put the screen slightly down so people can see? No, you're not, it's fine, forget it. Move it, just move the whole thing slightly further back. Whole computer. Thank you, stop. Perfect. Here, nay, Elisha, see if Dapper Haki, see if Sia, Adino, I need Shash, Samina Shah, of no Shah, Hasala, I don't know it's very Simon Miscalling Kosala, I'm no it's a Shadam Dechbach, I'm no Shimelkan, nay, no, I'm Karina. Leider myself sick of some big can't see alone. Questions as of Shem across the number, Hatan McLaren break me a goffin. Or Hatadi Noi, and a Hain Mathalom bring name some him. Hatadi McLaren bring me a או חתרתי עליהם החילום, המעבדו מקושכו בנו לחושך בין סלמים, בין יום השביעי שישמי מעשה ברוך חתרתי נוי, המעבדו בין קדש לכו. שבוע טוב, good luck. So, I'm in the middle. So just before we sign off, I hope we wish everyone a wonderful week. So there's an ancient Hasidic custom to share a story on Motzei Shabbat. So I wanted to try to share a story every week. And this one is about music. You know, music is very central to life. It's central to Jewish life. The tunes that we have, the familiar tunes, whether it's Friday night or davening, Rosh Hashanah, Pesach, whatever it is, the songs that we sing at a simcha, a wedding, or a bris. Music is very, very powerful. We are, of course, in a period of time, the Omer, when generally we don't listen to music because we're in a period of semi-mourning. It's something to discuss with your own rabbi in person, but the power of music is such that I have seen suggested that for those particularly perhaps who are feeling a little depressed or miserable or down, that music would be a comfort, that there might be a dispensation to listen to music, even though we wouldn't normally listen. One of my rabbis in yeshiva, during the Omer, was going on a late night journey, and he told us that if he starts to fall asleep in the car, one thing he'll do is turn on the radio very loudly with whatever music is playing, because it will help keep him awake. So whilst we're in a time when we don't listen to music, it's just something to be aware of, that there are certainly those that would permit, particularly for those who are struggling and where it gives comfort. We know from the Bible, King David was able to soothe King Saul with music. So music is a very powerful thing. I would be the first to admit that it's often tempting to put interesting tunes to things like Adon Alom to Happy Birthday or Match of the Day. Always feel a bit, cool and hip by doing that. But really, we should really think very carefully about the origins of the songs that we sing and the connection that we make with the people that wrote the words or the tune. I have heard a rumor that someone once did Adon Alom to Jingle Bells. Don't recommend it. And I just wanted to share a story which illustrates the power of music and the power of words. The story takes place in Yerushalayim a number of years ago. I believe it to be true. It's been published in a number of places. Some of you may have heard it. There was a gentleman who, I don't actually know his name, but he was a resident of Jerusalem, sort of person that would often have guests for Shabbat. If somebody turned up in Shul Friday night, he would invite them back to his house for dinner. So he's in Shul one Friday night, and a young man who looks a bit uncomfortable with a backpack and jeans and a t-shirt is in the back of Shul. And the person telling the story says, I went up to him after the service and I said, do you have anywhere to go for dinner tonight? He said, no, I don't. Would you like to come to our house and eat dinner with myself and my family? He said, thank you very much. And the young man came back to the house along with a number of other guests. some invited, some uninvited. And they went around to introduce themselves. When they came to this young man, he said his name was Machi. I don't know what Machi is short for, Israeli sounding name. And he's from Ramla. Ramla, for those who know, is near Lod, near the airport in Tel Aviv. Okay, fine. And throughout the meal, the host would ask people a bit about themselves. This boy was very quiet. And eventually he said, Machi, is there anything you'd like to share, or anything you'd like us to do? He said, yes, I'd like to sing a song. And the host says, what song? He says, the song that we sang earlier in the synagogue, in the Bet Knesset. And after a while of toing and froing, the host managed to figure out he was talking about the Chadodi. Now, there are many different tunes to the Chadodi. Anyway, so they sung, I don't know if they sung the whole thing, all 9 verses, or they sung the chorus, the same tune they'd done in Shul. And this young man was completely transfixed. And he said, sing it again. This went on a few times. They just kept singing it over and over again. And each time he said, please sing it again, please sing it again. Anyway, fine. They get to the end of the meal. Some people are starting to leave. The host sits down next to this young man. And he says, I'm sorry I didn't really get a chance to talk to you during the meal. Tell me a bit more about yourself. He said, you're from Ramla. Do you know the, whatever their name was, the Cohen family from Ramla? He says, no, I'm not from Ramla. I'm from Ramallah. Now, Ramallah, of course, is in the West Bank, Palestinian Authority. He says, and what is your name again? He says, Machi is short for Machluf. So the host says, so what's your story? He says, I'll tell you my story. He says, I was born in Ramallah, raised by, as far as I knew, a Arab Muslim family. He says, from a young age, I was absolutely fascinated with the Jews. He said, we didn't hear the most positive things about the Jews in school or at home. Quite often we heard quite negative things. He said, but as is often the case, it just made me rebel. It made me even more fascinated. I read everything I could about Judaism and the Jewish people, and I was absolutely fascinated. By the time I got to my late teens, I'm now 18, and I wanted to find out a bit more. I decided these people that were always hearing negative things about, there must be something special about them. I'd read a lot, but I wanted to see up front. So I don't know what pushed me to do this, he says, but I packed my bag and I was going to come to Jerusalem and just hitchhike and sort of go backpacking for a few days and see what I could find out. He says, as I was packing my bag to leave home, he says, my mother comes into my room and says, what are you doing? He said, I'm going to visit the Jews. He said, I want to find out more about them. He said, you know what? You're always talking about them in such a negative way. I think there's something special about them. He said, I want to go find out more about these Jews. And I said to my mother very rebelliously, you know what, maybe I'll even become one myself. And my mother went very quiet. She said, my son, you don't have to become one. You already are one. What do you mean, mother? She said, I'm originally Israeli, I'm Jewish. She said, I met your father, we fell in love, got married. And I agreed basically that I would adopt Islam. I've lived as a Muslim all these years, nobody knows this. But you should know, not only are you Jewish, we actually descend from a very famous rabbi. And my mother produced a copy of an old gravestone. And she said, you know, take this with you and good luck to you. And, you know, I wish you well. So here I am. So the host says, do you know what was written on this gravestone? So the boy says, I have the picture in my backpack. And he pulls out the picture and he shows it to the host. And the host got very excited. He said, you know who this is? The boy says, no. He says, this is the gravestone, the matzeva of Rabbi Shlomo Alkabetz. Rabbi Alkabetz was a Kabbalist who lived several hundred years ago, I think in Tzfat. And he's the person that wrote Lecha Dodi. And the host says to him, you know that song you kept asking to sing over and over again that so transfixed you? You didn't even realize this. He says, that song was written by your ancestor. He says, and the power moved you. And the boy ended up in tears and they hugged, and I don't know the rest of the story after that. But we see the power of the words even, not even just the music. The power of these words. This boy didn't even know that his great-great-great-grandfather had been a famous rabbi. He didn't even know he was Jewish. And yet, when he heard those words and that song, he connected with it. This is the power of music, the power of the words as well. It's a very, very powerful thing. So this story just reminds us how powerful the music is, and that we should use the right songs and the right choices for things that inspire us, and that music can have a tremendous effect on a person, not just the music, but the words as well. Anyway, I wish everyone Shavua Tov. Apologies if you joined us late, but you can catch up. It'll be on Facebook, and I will circulate the video as well of this story. Hope you find that helpful and moving. And we'll try to share a story quickly every week. We're back online tomorrow morning, 8:15 for davening, 9 o'clock for our Tanya share. Anyone is welcome to join us. And I'll be releasing my podcast at 11 o'clock. I wish everyone Shavua Tov. Have a lovely week full of blessings in every way.